My First Summer in the Sierra by John Muir. July 26. Ramble to the summit of Mount Hoffman, 11,000 feet high, the highest point in life's journey my feet have yet touched. And what glorious landscapes are about me. New plants, new animals, new crystals, and multitudes of new mountains far higher than Hoffman, towering in glorious array along the axis of the range. Serene, majestic, snow-laden, sun-drenched, vast domes and ridges shining below them. Forest, lakes, and meadows in the hollows. The pure, blue, bellflower sky brooding them all. A glory day of admission into a new realm of wonders, as if nature had wooingly whispered, "Come higher." What questions I asked, and how little I know of all the vast show, and how eagerly, tremulously hopeful of someday knowing more, learning the meaning of these divine symbols crowded together on this wondrous page. Mount Hoffman is the highest part of a ridge or spur, about 14 miles from the axis of the main range, perhaps a remnant brought into relief and isolated by unequal denudation. The southern slopes shed their waters into Yosemite Valley by Tenaya and Dome Creeks, the northern, in part, into the Tulameen River, but mostly into the Merced by Yosemite Creek. The rock is mostly granite, with some small piles and crests rising here and there in picturesque, pillared and castellated remnants of red, metamorphic slates. Both the granite and slates are divided by joints, making them separable into blocks like the stones of artificial masonry, suggesting the scripture, "He hath built the mountains." Great banks of snow and ice are piled in hollows on the cool, precipitous north side, forming the highest perennial sources of Yosemite Creek. The southern slopes are much more gradual and accessible. Narrow, slot-like gorges extend across the summit at right angles, which look like lanes, formed evidently by the erosion of less resisting beds. They are usually called Devil's Slides, though they lie far above the region usually haunted by the devil. For though we read that he once climbed an exceeding high mountain, he cannot be much of a mountaineer, for his tracks are seldom seen above the timberline. How boundless the day seems as we revel in these storm-beaten sky gardens amid so vast a congregation of onlooking mountains. Strange and admirable it is that the more savage and chilly and storm-chafed the mountains, the finer the glow on their faces and the finer the plants they bear. The myriads of flowers tinging the mountain top do not seem to have grown out of the dry, rough gravel of disintegration, but rather they appear as visitors, a cloud of witnesses to nature's love in what we, in our timid ignorance and unbelief, call howling desert. The surface of the ground, so dull and forbidding at first sight, besides being rich in plants, shines and sparkles with crystals. The radiance in some places is so great as to be fairly dazzling, keen lance rays of every color flashing, sparkling in glorious abundance, joining the plants in their fine, brave beauty work. Every crystal, every flower, a window opening into heaven, a mirror reflecting the Creator. From garden to garden, ridge to ridge, I drifted enchanted, now on my knees gazing into the face of a daisy, now climbing again and again among the purple and azure flowers of the hemlocks, now down into the treasuries of the snow, or gazing afar over domes and peaks, lakes and woods, and the billowy glaciated fields of the upper Tulameen, and trying to sketch them. In the midst of such beauty, pierced with its rays, one's body is all one tingling palette. Who wouldn't be a mountaineer? Up here, all the world's prices seem nothing. The largest of the many glacier lakes in sight, and the one with the finest shore scenery, is Tenaya, about a mile long, with an imposing mountain dipping its feet into it on the south side. Cathedral Peak, a few miles above its head, many smooth swelling rock waves and domes on the north, and in the distance, southward, a multitude of snowy peaks, the fountain-heads of rivers. Lake Hoffman lies shimmering beneath my feet, mountain pines around its shining rim. To the northward, the picturesque basin of Yosemite Creek glitters with lakelets and pools, but the eye is soon drawn away from these bright mirror wells, however attractive, to revel in the glorious congregation of peaks on the axis of the range in their robes of snow and light. Carlo caught an unfortunate woodchuck when it was running from a grassy spot to its boulder pile home, one of the hardest of the mountain animals. I tried hard to save him, but in vain. After telling Carlo that he must be careful not to kill anything, I caught sight, for the first time, of the curious pica, or little chief hare, that cuts large quantities of lupins and other plants and lays them out to dry in the sun for hay, which it stores in underground barns to last through the long, snowy winter. Coming upon these plants freshly cut and laying in handfuls here and there on the rocks has a startling effect of busy life on the lonely mountain top. These little haymakers, endowed with brain stuff something like ours own, God up here looking after them. What lessons they teach, how they widen our sympathy. An eagle soaring above a sheer cliff, where I suppose its nest is, makes another striking show of life, and helps to bring to mind the other people of the so-called solitude, deer in the forest caring for their young, the strong, well-clad, well-fed bears, the lively throng of squirrels, the blessed birds, great and small, stirring and sweetening the groves, and the clouds of happy insects filling the sky with joyous hum as part and parcel of the downpouring sunshine. All these come to mind, as well as the plant people and the glad streams singing their way to the sea. But most impressive of all is the vast glowing countenance of the wilderness in awful infinite repose. Toward sunset, enjoyed a fine run to camp, down the long south slopes, across ridges and ravines, gardens and avalanche gaps, through the firs and chaparral, enjoying wild excitement and excess of strength. And so ends a day that will never end.